No, you don't expect nothing great from me this week. You're welcome. Good night, good morning, good evening, everybody. But I starting off this episode in a bit of a somber mood. I know you ain't expect much from me, but I want to take a moment up front. All I know is the big news and the big story this week. So I want to take a moment up front to acknowledge the Queen and the longest reigning monarch of all time, the great Terry Lyons. Yes?
Hey, 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 hey. Ready up.
My Queen!
Hey, I charge up and ready to fling bam bam, fling the bam bam, fling bam bam, fling the bam bam, roll bam bam, roll the bam bam, roll bam bam, fling bam bam, fling the bam bam, fling bam bam, fling the bam bam, roll bam bam, roll the bam bam, roll bam bam. If I feet up and out the back, up me foot, that's
Not a fetting business.
I feel like wine and go down, that's
Not a fetting business.
If I drink and I drink till I drunk, that's
Not your fetting business. All that thing going on in England is not my fetting business.
I'm feeling nice. I'm feeling so nice. Only give me room. Only give me room. Give me room. Give me room. Give me room. I'm ready to fling bam bam, fling the bam bam, fling bam bam, fling the bam bam, roll bam bam, roll the bam bam, roll bam bam. I'm ready to fling bam bam, fling the bam bam, fling bam bam, fling the bam bam, roll bam bam, roll the bam bam, roll bam bam. If I feel to carry on like a hooligan, that's not your fetting business. And if I feel like taking jam, that's not your fetting business. If I feel like bubble like this, that's not your fetting business.
All the British stupidness is not my fetting business.
I'm feeling nice. I'm feeling so nice. Only give me room. Only give me room. Give me room. Give me room. Give me room. I'm ready to fling bam bam, fling the bam bam, fling bam bam, fling the bam bam, roll bam bam, roll the bam bam, roll bam bam, roll the bam bam, fling bam bam, fling the bam bam, fling bam bam, fling the bam bam, roll bam bam, roll the bam bam, roll bam bam. Boy, I don't care who say me behavior dirty, me behavior smutty, men behavior mucky. Mind your business. I get in on real bad in the party. Don't have to answer to nobody. Back
Keywords.
is my hobby.
Mind your business. Hey, welcome to episode 113, lucky 113 of the Corey Shepherd podcast. The voice of the great Terry Lyons, longest monarch of all time, longest reigning monarch. Coincidentally, one of the songs she's singing, I want you to go and look for a song by the name of Dark Meat. All that because the Queen's expedite, because she was going to live to 150 something years. People marrying black woman and things. She said, boy, out of here. And Terry sang about that. Salute the great Terry Lyons and welcome to episode 113. Welcome back to everybody who's been listening. Welcome to all the new listeners on board. You could find this podcast anywhere you listen to podcasts or audiobooks, and you could also jump on YouTube. For the visuals, you know what I mean? A man good looking, you must check him out on YouTube. And when you do, subscribe and like and share and all these nice things, right? Like what the young people is say. My Queen. I want to play one more Queen, the only Queen that I acknowledge. Listen to the lyrics, eh? Listen to the lyrics, good for me. Because I don't know what went on here this week, no? Yes? Longest reigning Queen.
They say that I reign too long, forgetting that my constitution is strong. Instead of respecting me long reign, they making plot to take down my name. I've been breaking down walls ever since I was small. They could stand up tall and strong like a wrecking ball. I would knock them down. They say that I reign too long, forgetting that the constitution is strong. Instead of respecting me long reign, they making plot to take down my name. Everywhere I reign supreme, the one and only Calypso Queen. No man alive or dead could man come and take the crown off me head.
Oh, girl. Bidi, 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 bam, 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 bam. Hear music.
Foolish and petty men to call me small island girl. Now I travel the world. Anywhere they go, they know I am Calypso, Rose Queen of Calypso.
Badam bam badai day, bidi bidi bam bam badam bai, bidi bidi bam bam badai day, bam badai bam bam badai day. All right, so I had to read about this something. I had to let me know the Queen has died according to who's this? The Express, the Guardian, Sunday Express. The Queen has died. I'm gonna just make sure I do the news and I do the right thing. Queen Elizabeth II, the UK's longest serving monarch. UK's longest serving monarch, but you think when this week I thought it was Trinidad longest serving monarch. I mean, I thought she was so. Has died at Balmoral at age 96 after reigning for 70 years. Her family gathered at her Scottish estate after concerns grew about her health earlier on Thursday. The Queen came to the throne in 1952 and witnessed enormous social change. With her death, her eldest son Charles, the Prince of Wales, will lead the country in mourning as the new king and head of state for 14 Commonwealth realms. In a statement, Buckingham Palace said the Queen died peacefully. What else they would say? The Queen died peacefully at Balmoral this afternoon. The King and the Queen consort more? Where's the Queen consort? The King and the Queen consort will remain at Balmoral this evening and will return to London tomorrow. So that is the situation. The Queen there. And I want to say that, listen, when you rule and your wickedness is in your heart, right? When you see a rule with wickedness in your heart, you just die with wickedness in your heart too. Because this woman died in the middle of the Premier League season. You telling me she couldn't dead 2-3 weeks ago before the season started? I could watch my football this weekend or rally out. Look how long you rally. You ain't dying at all. Nothing in ending your living and your liberty. You couldn't wait till the season done. Man, no. She gave Liverpool a chance to get the act together, you know. She did and gave Liverpool a chance to straighten it out. Get Klopp 2 extra weeks of training. But maybe I should be thankful because, you know, she get Chelsea a chance to get it together this weekend. Chelsea looking so great now, you know. So, what to say? Rest in peace to the Queen. I hear. Listen, it's from somebody on Instagram by the name of Yank Boss, more popularly known as Mourn. Not exactly the content that I would typically play on this podcast, but in my spare time, any chance I get, I will take in Mourn. Mourn is one of the longest reigning queens on Instagram too. And I think he summed it up well. When he talk about the Queen. The Queen and none of my ancestors. Before I get into too much of this on the serious part of the story, I want to play one more song from our Queen. I don't mind if I humor me a little bit now. I want to play one of our longest reigning queens of soca who goes unacknowledged. While we acknowledging queens, let me acknowledge queens now. Here, Queen.
It's all kind of style you're going to get here tonight. You're here.
Yes.
When I am stage, I don't run with this. Mashing up business. I am a specialist. Man, them rush for me to be on top. Cause I've got this stuff to mash them up. And they're all in saucy, baby. How are you put it on me? Oh, saucy, baby. How are you put it on me? Saucy, baby. How are you put it on me? Oh, saucy, baby. My chance now, please. Your waistline ready. You're full of energy. Oh, saucy, baby. You're not able to put it on me. When you're done, mash up the party. Don't forget to check me. Oh, saucy, baby. How are you put it on me?
I can't wait for the part. That part too laid down in this song. But I just was taking a moment in this episode to acknowledge our queens. Since we're feeling so sorry for queens and things, these times and queens. Trinidad Guardian, 5th place in Trinidad and Tobago named after the Queen. Queen Elizabeth II, who died, it is Queen Elizabeth II from now on, going forward, is Queen Elizabeth II. It's no more Queen Elizabeth II. Queen Elizabeth II, who died yesterday at the age of 96, was once known as the Queen of Trinidad and Tobago before Trinidad and Tobago became a republic in 1976. Now, before I move forward here, right, I was upset, you know. When I hear we flying flag at half-mast, I'll be honest that I was very upset. I didn't like this idea that we had to fly flag at half-mast, so people understand that Jamaica is still not a republic, if I'm not mistaken, and Barbados, nor reach republicanism hood. So they may be still, very attached to the Queen and thing. I thought we divorced ourselves from this garbage a long time ago, but I understand. A man tell my boy international relations, he say if they don't fly the flag at half mast, we can't get sugar and oil sell and BP go pull. I say, it makes sense, you know what I mean? Maybe we shouldn't play these kind of games. Let me play these games on the podcast and let rollers and them do what they're supposed to do diplomatically. Think that hard in this country already. Here are 5 places in Trinidad and Tobago named after the Queen. And I have a little suggestion as to how we could adjust these things, because I know that Queen Street was renamed Janelle Penny Commission Street. They still leave the Queen, you know what I mean? That is our Queen. I like that. If we have our Queen, we're good. So Queen's Park Savannah, first on the chopping block. Queen's Park Savannah is one of the places that maybe we could start looking at. So since the Queen gone, and now his King George done lost King George Park already, and we named that after Mandela. Great man and everything. And I was wondering at that time if there was not a Trinidadian hero and ambassador that we could name it after. But it's a fair game if you name it after Mandela. That's all right. You know what I mean? His legacy is global and stamped and you know what I mean? That story is what it is. But certainly after King George, the Queen's Park Savannah is the biggest green space that we have in the city. That is where our carnival is passed through every year. So why not the saucy wow Savannah? You know what I mean? I find it's a decent little suggestion, because she is one of the queens. All I want to tell you about queens of carnival. We have Terry Lyons. We have Karen Ashe. We have Singing Sandra. We have Denise Belfort, Destra, Fayan Lyons, Patrice Roberts. Look at how much queen of carnival we have. We have I forget some of the mask makers. Rosalind Gabriel. Who else we have the women in the mask making? We have so many queens of carnival that we could name things after, since the Queen's Park Savannah is one of the meccas for carnival. This is a good opportunity, you know what I mean? Don't be the iron while it's hot. Don't waste no time. You know what I mean? This is a good time to change over the Queen's Park Savannah to the Fayan Lions Destra Savannah. I here for it. Queen's Hall, built in 1959, located in Port of Spain on a picturesque 3-acre site at the entrance to St. Anne's and Cascade. The 30,000 feet arts center provides an environment for a wide variety of world-class events, an eclectic mix of theater, music, dance, and other performing arts and disciplines. Queen's Hall. Good time. Good time. You see, the Queen reigned long. Nobody can complain. The woman had a long reign. She was there since 1802. So now, that's she about 160-something years old. She had things named after all through the Commonwealth. Nobody's going to pay attention now if we take Queen's Hall and we name it after Queen Beryl McBurney. What about that? That doable? Queen's Royal College. Queen's Royal College, referred to as QRC, or the college by alumni. Wait, QRC alumni is referred to QRC as the college? Okay, let me not get into that. It's a secondary school in Trinidad and Tobago. The college got its name under Queen Victoria. Originally a boarding school and grammar school, the secular college is selective and noted for its German Renaissance architecture, academic performance, and alumni representation in sports, politics, and science in Trinidad and Tobago and globally. The main building itself is one of the Magnificent Seven, a group of historic buildings built in the early 1900s. The North and South buildings, known as North Block and Science Block, respectively, were built during the late 1930s. The school has its own pavilion and canteen, both located on the edge of its field, used in all seasons for various sports. Good timing. We could take Queen's Royal College. We have plenty queens here, as I say. It's still a Wendy Fitzwilliam. I know she have a boulevard named after her, but that is We Queen. You could take it and name after a woman who strived and did so well in educating herself and educating many others. We are queens here. We could use, and I mean, given QRC history, Queen like QRC. Queen Street. Well, that done gone to Janelle Penny Commission, right? So we heading in the right direction. I like where we're going with this. Pro Queen Street. I don't know what Pro Queen Street is. I associated with the Queen. That might be wrong. But Pro Queen Street in Arima recently named after the Grand Master Lord Kitchener. So we heading in the right direction. And of course, Queen's Park Oval. Now, the thing about the Queen's Park Oval is not privately owned. It's not publicly owned. So the government don't have any say. Everything else I call here so far is owned by the state. So easy pickings, right? We could take care of that this week self. While them studying funeral and things and it no football, so we're not distracted, we could focus on this and make them changes one time. But the Queen's Park Oval might be a little bit of a task because dare I say that the people who are running the Queen's Park Oval may well feel a very strong affinity to the Queen and attachment to the Queen because they themselves have benefited from the spoils of rape and robbery and pillage and so on. You understand? So they might be too interested in changing this, but the Queen's Park Oval is a sports venue in Port of Spain, Trinidad and Tobago, mostly used for cricket matches, but can also host football matches and tennis and squash facilities. It opened in 1896. That's about the time the Queen born. Privately owned by Queen's Park Cricket Club, it is currently the second largest capacity cricket ground in the West Indies, with seating for about 20,000 people. What was the biggest one? I wonder if Brian Lara is the biggest one. I think they were talking about 25,000 people as being the capacity for Brian Lara, if I'm not mistaken. I wonder if Brian Lara is the biggest ground in the Caribbean. It has hosted more cricket test matches than any other ground in the Caribbean, with 60 as of January 2018. 60. Now that is 60 test matches in the Oval and ever since, like in all time. This is long and strange. And has also hosted a number of one-day international matches, including many World Series cricket games in 1979 and matches of the 2007 Cricket World Cup. The Trinidad and Tobago cricket team plays most of their home matches at that ground, and it is the home of the Caribbean Premier League team, Trinidad and Tobago Knight Riders. The pavilion, named after world batting record holder Brian Lara following his achievements, dates back to 1896, though there were extensive renovations in the 50s and in 2007 prior to the World Cup following an earthquake. The concrete stand was renamed the Larry Constantine Stand in recognition of the former West Indies cricketer. The first ODI match at the ground was played in March 1983, and the first T20 in 2009. Okay, so clearly I have a warped history about the Oval. It's a good thing I read this, because in my mind, the Oval test matches would have been played there a long time. If it's 1983 and 60 test matches, maybe that might sound about right, because usually back then when they come in for tests, when they're doing tours like Pakistan or India or Australia come here on tour, they would usually play 1 or 2 games in Trinidad. If it's a test match, they might just play 1 test match and some ODIs, and then they go out to Border or Sabina Park or anywhere up the island. But it's only in 1983 the Oval hosted its first test match. So what it was doing since 1896? I don't understand. Now, funny that the Queen's Park Oval is named after the Queen, who would have been, despite all my joking and all these things, to get serious for a while, she would have been one of the most powerful women in the world, right? If only by title and not by the activity or not by the work that she was doing. Because I understand that she's a figurehead leader, but a figurehead leader in such a large portion of the world, you know, a high percentage of the world would acknowledge for a long time the Queen as their queen. So you have a facility where in 1896, you decide you're naming it after one of the most powerful women in the world. And the club does not allow women. It's indicative of the way the Queen and them has behaved. I want to tell you, this could be the hardest one to know, because these people believe in these kind of doctrines. You're taking name after the Queen, but this is a boys' club for the longest while. So my humble suggestion to the people who are running the Queen's Park Oval, is that since you all have already realized that it is possible to name at least sections of your ground after great cricketers, because the cricket is what the Queen's Park Oval is known for more than anything else, and you have Larry Constantine there and you have Brian Lara, my humble suggestion would be, if you already acknowledge all this, let's name the Queen's Park Oval the Queen Deandra Dottin Oval. Recently retired from West Indies cricket and leading the first Trinidad and Tobago Knight Riders CPL team to the victory in this year's T20 Women's Tournament. So the first tournament they have, she take us to victory, recently retired from the West Indies. How great would it be if we were to take the Oval and name it the Queen Deandra Dottin Oval? Just my suggestions, you know what I mean? I'm going to loop TT now, because this was one of the things that I had a hard time understanding as a child, right? Remembering the Queen, 3 times Elizabeth II visited TNT. This is by just loop TT. Or I put name and thing by article again. Or they're making this hard for me. Queen Elizabeth II, Britain's longest reigning monarch, passed away. All right, let me get to the thing now. Queen Elizabeth II and Duke of Edinburgh visited Trinidad and Tobago in 1966. The Queen and the Duke of Edinburgh toured West Indies in February 1966. Video shared by the National Archive shows the Queen and Prince Philip in Technicolor as they visited Port of Spain and met with the country's first Prime Minister, Dr. Eric Williams. The royal delegation also viewed a carnival display which was put on especially for their visit. She allegedly said, if this is just a preview, sample the real thing must be fabulous. That was my British accent for the Queen. The couple also reportedly went on a 20-mile state drive in the island of Tobago and saw the entire western section of the island. They also had a buffet lunch at the Crown Point Hotel. I ain't going back there. And then Crown Point, the Crown in Crown Point is for this Crown. We had things to do anyways, A&R Robinson now, right? So we done together that already. Attended a garden party at the Governor General's Tobago residence. What about if she had visit now? No, should I go by Farley or what? Anyway, the visit was part of a month-long royal tour of the Caribbean, which included British Guyana, Grenada, St. Vincent, Barbados, St. Lucia, Dominica, Montserrat, Antigua, St. Kitts and Nevis, Anguilla, Tortola, Bahamas, and Jamaica. She come back again in 85. This might be why I remember, because I remember they taking us out of Newtown Boys and lining us up on the street. If I remember right, I had to go by where Amar building now is at the track corner. You know me and street names. The corner of Traggery Road, and I think that is Damien Street or one of them streets. And we had to just wave, like they give us little flags, little Trinidad flags, little paper flag, and take the whole school had to line up the streets and wave at this woman passing. And that was it. She passed in an open top vehicle. You could barely see who is who. And let me tell you something. In my little 5-year-old mind at that time, these people look real old. I said, but these queen and thing, this ain't gonna last long if these are the people in charge. What going on? Little did I know she had 50, 60 years left in her still. It seems as though the Queen took a liking to Trinidad and Tobago, returning as part of a Commonwealth delegation in 1985, or I guess the head of the Commonwealth delegation. A photo shared online via UWI Museum showed the Queen on a visit to UWI St. Augustine. So UWI St. Augustine campus in 1985. The Queen also visited the House of Angostura. That is Queen. I like the Queen again, man. Where Royal Oak or Muslim. Wait. You see, this is in my mind. When I drink anything like Royal Oak, this is a Royal Oak. These things was named after that royalty. When I hear Royal Oak and thing, me and think that don't make any connection in my mind between the monarchy and thing. But anyway, she visited Trinidad and Tobago again for Chogam in 2009. You know, my mother was telling me recently that what I remember as the Queen visit in 1985 might not have been the Queen. She said Princess Margaret would have come here sometime while I was in primary school. And it was the same thing. Imagine the Queen's sister. We had to line up to wave flag for her too. So whichever one it was, I was there for one of them, right? I think it was the Queen. And the Queen visits again for Chogam in 2009. More than 4 decades after her first visit, the Queen at Trinidad and Tobago. The Queen returned to Trinidad and Tobago for 2009 Commonwealth Heads of Government meeting. There she met former Prime Minister Patrick Manning and other heads of state. She also met with the world-famous batsman Brian Lara and footballer Dwight York. It said she wore a dress specially decorated with Trinidad and Tobago national emblems, the Scarlet Ibis and Crocodile, which allegedly became one of her favorite dresses. Come on. All you don't know yet that these people mama guide me. These people take everything that we have. They continue to take everything that we have through companies like BP and so on. Them own the whole place. And we still talking about these people as having some kind of control over the country. And, oh, she thought her dress was the... And you know, I see some Trinidadian by Buckingham Palace with our flag. Who is the man who in charge now? King. Me know the man name is Harry, William, Jason. I don't know which one of them in charge now. But he come out to greet mourners by me know if it's Balmoral or Buckingham Palace. And of course, some Trinis find themselves in the mix and going to shake his hand and express condolences to him and all them things. I mean, these people and them don't have we to study, you know, but we go on to express condolences. And of course, in our normal national pride and patriotism, they walk with our flag. So we end up in the news for good reason, you know what I mean? Coming to say, you know what I mean, condolences and sympathies going out to the Queen and so on. And a part of me wishing like they just smother he with our flag, you know, they just drape that wrong. He let we get some action. But I mean, the way he looking, I want to put out a little wager on this podcast. You know what I mean? We have a nice little group in this podcast, you know, people listening all the time. You know what I mean? I come in here every week. we had to do some things to stay connected. And I want to start a little betting pool over who will live longer, that new fella they calling King or Biden. I feel both of them on the way out. We're going to see, there are people who within their whole lifetime, all they would know is Queen Elizabeth. She reigned for so long. She was queen for like 200 and something years. So most generations would only know Queen Elizabeth as queen. We get to see a queen and a king. But I feel we go see another person too. Because he ain't looking like he us too long. He looking like he's 1 foot in, 1 foot out, you know what I mean? So I feel we on to the next one pretty quickly. But it is what it is. The queen has died, you know what I mean? I wanted to just real quickly, only humor me for a little bit, right? Because I just want to make sure that we do this the right way. I can't just come here and not play a proper tribute to the queen. As much as I like to get them flack and them kind of thing, I want to make sure that we speak about her in the terms that she deserves to be spoken in, right? So from one queen to another.
Queen Elizabeth II was more than just a head of state.
Right.
She was a calm, reassuring voice of hope that stood with the world in tough times.
Right.
For her years of love, kindness, and dedication to the Commonwealth, we will always be grateful. Today, on behalf of opposition members of Parliament and members of United National Congress, I offer our sincere condolences to the royal family and to the British people in this time of mourning.
Yeah, you know what I mean? It's a serious matter. So condolences to all who so inclined and who feel sorry for the loss of the queen and who feel like the loss are part of their history and their childhood and whatever it might be and whatever allegiances you have to the queen. I would like to say condolences, because what is Kamala say? So, no, I saluting the queen for passing through Angostura and taking some sips of Royal Oak, right? And I can't make too much joke about this thing here because I can't read so well. Reading is a tricky thing for me, as anybody who listens to this know that I have a little bit struggle when it comes to the reading. You know what I mean? My eyesight bad and my reading worse. So, but boy, I don't know. You had to come and make such a short statement, and you fumble and bumble your way through that one. It makes me wonder if Royal Oak's still in play. You know what I mean? That's what I'm saying. And it's funny. This woman was just saying, the great Kamala Prasad Biseso, who now is back in serious consideration for my vote because the PDP ain't looking like they could make it. I was there with the PDP, but I mean the men burn out faster than the Red House fire, as the people used to say. I don't understand why it's happening with PDP. So Kamala back in the running, but I just find it strange that, in an efforts, I think it's genuinely in efforts to continuously make the government look bad and not make the government look bad, but say something bad about the Rowley administration. There's run and, they say, what independence had to do with the Queen get fed up away? You know what I mean? And they gave us our independence. It was too expensive for them to carry, so we didn't gain any independence. I mean, I wonder what she's talking about and why she chose to say some of the things she say. And just last week, I was to talk about the fact that the opposition, let me understand something, right? They have something called a Westminster form of governance. And in the Westminster form of democracy, you have a separation of powers, the idea of the judiciary, the legislature, and the parliamentary being separate and so on. And it's written into this type of governance that this is the way we vote, and there's a constituency type setup, and whoever win most of the constituencies, that is the people who get it in, right? So I know we're talking about changing that, and it's taking some constitutional change for us to adjust that and all. But that's how we live now. And that's a system that was handed to us by the British from 1962, right? How we govern and so on, right? And it is important to remember that while we loosely say the government as the PNM now, or whoever in power, under the Westminster system, the government is made up of the people who are in power and the opposition. So when we have 41 seats, all the people who win of those 41 seats are the people who make up the government, which means that from a strictly, if you want to get down to the facts, the UNC is part of the government right now, right? I know that when we typically do it, and all of us do it, right? We when we say the government, we mean the party in power. But the word government under the Westminster system refers to all the people who have one seat coming together to vote on issues and so on. Because remember, even if you take a vote, yes, that was one of the flaws, if you ask me, of the Westminster system, because once somebody has a majority rule, let me use Mia Motley as an example. It's not a great system in situations where people are so popular even in our system and the British system as well, where you really just have two very big, strong parties who are very, very popular, it could get murky. In Mia Motley case, where I think she have all these seats bar one, or in the PDP case, them have all these seats bar one. You know, it tends to be that you end up with a king, you end up with somebody who could basically be a dictator. In our case, if you have a 3/5 majority, you have somebody who could pretty much do what they want unchecked, right? So the beauty of the system should be that you have checks and balances. Hence the reason why the opposition is part of the government. They are there to help us. They are there to keep the government in check so that we could never, no matter how popular somebody is in theory, they could never run away with the country, right? It makes sense on paper. In practice, it doesn't work as well, because when you think of it, if a man win, it's 41 seats. If a man win 22 and the other person win the balance, how much is the balance? 19? It means that most simple votes, the government will win, or the party in power will win that if everybody votes along party lines, right? Which UNC having a little trouble controlling these days. But the point I'm making is this. The UNC and being the strongest party in opposition now, and pretty much the only party in opposition until probably PDP win the next 2 seats in Tobago in the next election, right? You are the strongest party. You are the longest reigning opposition of time. You are also a party that has been in power twice. Your current political leader has been in power as prime minister. So she's a former prime minister. I was reading anything about the Queen just now, and I couldn't understand why they said he met former prime minister Patrick Manning. Assuming they mean he met Patrick Manning when he was in power, that was the prime minister, you know? But as somebody who was the head of state, or the prime minister of the country, I should say, the idea that y'all consistently boycott national events like independence, I think we should be looking at that seriously. Like, what is the reason you don't show up at any point in time? So in other words, you unconcerned. What happened with Trinidad and Tobago, whether they turn 60 years old, or we turn 100 years old, or we survive a major issue like COVID and so on, and we come out relatively decent on the backside of that, you know what I mean? Everybody finding back their jobs, negotiating for things, all kind of things going right and wrong in the country. And as part of the government, you opt not to show up for these things. I think it's a slap in the face to the people. You have people who have nothing to do with governance who show up there just to wave their flag for their husbands, their friends, their family who in the parade. And it's like, dude, you boycott every official ceremony. I'm not sure if it's stated as a boycott, but they're certainly not there. And as far as I remember, they've never been there. They don't show up at all. But so I be wary of these things, you know what I mean? So I'm watching all the people who have all this hurt in their heart for Queen Elizabeth passing and so on. And very little concern for Trinidad and Tobago on major national issues. It make me wonder, and the UNC starting to come across like that to me, though. Where, you know, you're doing a hurried statement that you didn't even read over before Queen Elizabeth II was, I mean, you see that on paper and you say, imagine that. I always come here and say, you know, listen, I reading these things for the thing. A lot of the times I read in articles to talk about on the podcast, I find all this as I go along with you. I uninformed in a lot of areas. I can't remember too much. But the biggest story of the week is that the Queen passed away. You as the leader of the opposition, all of a sudden now you had to make a statement about that. You know what I mean? When it comes to independence and things showing up, not so much. But with the Queen's thing, you had to say something about that. From queen to queen, right? She's royal. So you see that on piece of paper. Even if you in rehearse somebody now hand you that and you come up with Queen Elizabeth II. It's like, you know, wake up or something like that. You know what I mean? It's like, will you come out? But just taking that as a point to note that as part of the government of this country, you opt out of those things. And it makes me wonder if this is not the same army and air guard and coast guard and police and stuff that you want to be dependent on. Because you're trying to get back in power. These are the people who you're going to get back in power for. So if you're in power when we turn 70, you're going to come back and say that all these great things about the nation and our armed forces, and you're going to come and look over that parade and thing in good conscience. I just think it's in poor taste. But of course, they seem to have a greater affinity for the issues that happen internationally. When I say the people who speak, the vociferous people in the UNC, maybe outside of Anna Roberts, they seem to have a greater affinity for what is happening outside of this country and in the international sphere than what is be happening in the country on a day-to-day. So I'm hoping that Republic Day coming around, right? And When the Queen die, is still to celebrate Republic Day, like becoming a Republican thing, or we could just call that moot too. We could rename that holiday. But we're gonna come around to that time. So I'm hoping that whatever happens with Republic Day celebrations in the country, that the UNC, you know what I mean, partake, man, partake. It will be nice to see all. Remember that all looking for the votes of the people. I would love for all to stop trying to talk to all the base. When I say all politicians, I would love for all to stop talking to all your base alone and start talking to all of us. You know what I mean? If you're planning to govern all of us, practice while you're not there. You know what I mean? It would be a good idea to practice your governance for all people while you're not in power. Now, before I get out of this, right, I don't talk about because I don't know if it's the Queen dying or the Queen ailing or what it was, you know. She just had to swear in a new prime minister as well, you know. And after Boris Johnson stepped down, it looked pretty much like a slam dunk for this lady Liz Truss. And eventually she got in. And I was looking at it this week, and I was when she was elected, when she was appointed, however she got there. When she started to take power, I was looking at one of them news stations my son seemed to like to watch every morning, which I don't watch much international news at all. I get my international news from Twitter, Facebook, and so on. But I assume that, all right, so we have a new woman prime minister, Britain. I believe she's the third one. They had the Iron Lady. What was her name again? I know they had Theresa May, but Margaret Thatcher. Yeah, Margaret Thatcher, I think it was. So she's the third, and salute to that, you know what I mean? Woman prime minister and thing, we like that, you know what I mean? A woman in power, she'll be the next Mia Motley. She go in there and make mass appeals for the undertrodden in the world and those who have been stepped on by these colonial masters and so on. We had to give her the benefits of the doubt, right? That's what she coming to do for now. But I really forget from my days of watching The Crown that she still had to go to Balmoral and get the blessing of the... If you ever watch The Crown, one of the best parts of The Crown for me, beside the fact that I learned all the things they was trying to teach me in primary school that I wasn't paying attention to and didn't understand. And thank God for watching it with Stacey too, because I didn't understand all these things. But it was Winston Churchill being a old experience or a real battle axe. You know what I mean? And coming to meet this, what would be a little girl? You know what I mean? She's a little girl to him. She was a young girl now taking over the monarchy. And he had to come in there being the elected person and meet with the Queen and have tea and so on. And it kind of makes me wonder, like, what went on in that meeting with Liz Truss? If she died like 2 days later, Liz Truss should be a suspect in this thing. But anyway, the Commonwealth started to fall apart as she gone. Because what's none them get wild. But before we get to that, one little last song from a Queen for me, right? And I dedicated this song really to people who were so distraught by the Queen's passing this week. I understand how you all feel. I just want to leave you with this song, right? I want to leave you with one from the great, from our Queen, right?
Sitting on another man's land, I'm getting stupid.
Yes.
Toiling up another man's land, me mind corrupted. My culture, creed and race, wherever it was placed, I will find it. Oh yeah, I'm going to find it. Because I want to go
Let me hear what's on the mother say now.
It is oftentimes said that pride goes before a fall.
Right.
And he that exalteth himself shall be humble.
Yes, right. When
But he that humbleth himself
shall be exalted. Right.
I wish to take this opportunity to warn my colleague and friend.
Wait, hold on. Anytime you hear somebody say friend, right? Just as a word of advice, anytime you hear somebody say there's a friend, but they end it with a D or something like a T, that is not your friend. Just a little life advice, right? You say, I want to warn my colleague and friend. Well, go ahead, Watson.
I wish to take this opportunity
Him.
to warn my colleague and friend, deputy political leader, who holds the position of chief secretary,
Right.
that those positions are temporary and subject to the ideals of man.
Watson Duke, can I ask a question here while you go? And I'll go back to it, right? I'm sorry to stop it so much, but is it that you're saying the appointment to the chief secretary of the THA is appointed by man and temporary, but that political leader of a party is not appointed by man and permanent? I'm just asking. Because when you hear them, we must pay attention to little statements like these, right? It will tell you a lot about the political leaders in all the parties we have. These people genuinely feel that. I remember how hard it was when Basdeo Pandey was going to be removed as a political leader of the UNC. Remember them days? Don't just remember Pandey now on Michaela Instagram looking like the gentlest old man. You know what I mean? The most fun-loving old man. You look like you want to hug him up. Every time you see Pandey now, you feel like you want to squeeze him. Don't just remember them so remember them when they was in their heyday and when they was bad. Remember how hard Basdeo Pandey, I can't quote him, Well, Basdeo Pandey was basically saying that this is my party and I make this party, and basically that he rather destroy than anybody else take control. So listen to Watson Duke words carefully and you will start to understand these political leaders that you're following. Now go on, Watson.
That those positions are temporary.
Right.
And subject to the ideals of man.
Not yours, right?
And he should not glorify in the authority he wields because of the position given to him. But he should humble himself and deal with the issue that have had Tobagonians at their wits' end.
Right.
Yesterday, 27 persons were challenged with food.
Right.
And in spite of what is being said, the answer was food. And my concern was, how do we feed these Tobagonians on a daily basis until they have to take their exit from North America?
Now, if you wasn't following the story, right, Watson pop up on his Instagram. Surprisingly, he pop up on his Instagram and was dealing with a bunch of Tobagonians who went over for, I think it's like cultural something. I didn't get to exactly what it is they're there for. But it had to do with something to, like a cultural troupe then, dance and performers and so on. And they got a grant from the government that come up to, from the THA, that come up to, my calculation was about $14,000 per person, $60, right? Which would include for the flights and the accommodation and so on. I mean, think of it this way. If you travel, you would know that why $14,000 sometimes it sounds like a lot of money. Time you pay for your flight to go in the States, it's about $5,000. You're down to about $9,000, about $1,500 US for you to see about accommodation as well as food. And if you're there, let me say a hotel is $200 a night and you have $1,500. If you're there for 5 nights, that's $1,000 going on. You have $500 for food. That wouldn't count for your transport and your Ubers and whatever else you had to do there. So when you break it down, it's not sounding like a lot of money, but typically the way these things work, from my little bit of experience, my little bit of ignorance, is that if you need a certain amount of money from the THA or from a governing body, like sports, all this used to happen in sports all the time with TTFA and the Olympic Committee and so on, and you need to go and you need a grant. You have to give them a breakdown of what it is you're going with. So you would have to show your transport, your food, your accommodation, your per diem, whatever are the things that needed, and see how much they come up with. So from my little bit of layman understanding, if you need $25,000 per person, it wouldn't mean automatically that the government will give you the 25 grand a person, right? The government might say, boy, listen, we could get you 10. you still have your breakdown of what you're going to need to make this trip. So what you could do then is look for corporate sponsors or somebody else to get the 15. Or as was happening in the sports, sometimes the parents will jump out the other 15 or whatever it might be. So you save some money because you would have to jump out 25 and you were sending your child, but now the government gave you 10, so you could put out 15, right? So I was a little confused as to why this became a public matter when Trinidadians or Tobagonians were out there starving, as he puts it, and sleeping on the pavement and looking so forlorn and so on. But my belief, right? I don't think these two people had like one another. This is my opinion now, right? I don't know if Farley and Duke had ever liked one another. Let me extend that to say I'm not sure if politicians is ever genuinely like one another. And I don't know if they need to. They're in a job, and once they can help one another, they will help one another. And if you can further my cause, I could work with you. And for public sake, we could appear as best of friends. But there's those same people who are best of friends could one day be best of friends with the people who are your opposition. So, what was Pandey's statement about that, boy? Politics have a morality of its own. And, crossing the floor and them things, it reminds me of my guy Charandas from Guyana. Just Google Charandas Guyana, right? It's the greatest story ever. See, look for it on YouTube. But these things tend to happen, but while we're together and we have a cause that would work for us, because I want you to remember how we got here, right? Watson Duke was a threat to the PNM in Tobago. And the last THA election they had, or the Tobago election, whatever it was, it got hung because they tied the same amount of seats with PNM. Watson came out and tell Rollers, he said, Rollers, we could govern and I will give all you the position to appoint the head of the THA. But I want to be the head of finance, or I want to choose the person who I put in as head of finance, right? Of course, the PNM don't do the collaboration thing or the coalition thing at all. So that stayed hung for a while until they had a re-election. When the re-election come now, Watson and them take a quick clean sweep, as many would have predicted, right? I didn't know anything about this. So my guy Marlon Mills in Tobago, who is always filming in Tobago info. And he was the one telling me PNM don't have a chance, basically. And at that time, that was some years ago, he was telling me about Farley Augustine. And his words to me about Farley Augustine is that he's going to be very hard for people to beat in Tobago. Because he say, if you harvest Farley there, somebody dead, Farley coming in a wake with a bottle, coming in lime, and you know what I mean? He say he genuinely for Tobago, of Tobago, and from Tobago, right? So Mills was always telling me that Farley was going to be somebody hard to beat. And like with everything else, if you have somebody who hard to beat, a good strategy might be to see how you join up with them. So I feel that's the only reason Watson and Farley get together, because Farley might have accepted that if within the corridors of the PDP, which more established than him from the standpoint of popularity and PR. And remember, Watson swim from Tobago to Trinidad and these things. I don't know if Farley wants to necessarily go through that. That's a hard swim. It's not everybody can make that swim. So it might have been easier for him at the time to work through the PDP than to form his own party. Or maybe at some point he thought PDP would have been his own party. You never know how these things start off. And he worked as a PDP person and so on, and win out. He and Watson win out together. I don't know if they would have been able to do that without each other. Because Watson had a little currency on the ground in Tobago, but he had national popularity through the PDP, through his work with the union before, through his swimming from Trinidad to Tobago, the only man to ever accomplish that, I think. So, from doing these things before, he have a certain amount of profile as a politician or as a political party, which Farley didn't have at the time. So, to expedite his earlier threat to what London had name again? Orville London? Where he told them in a meeting, if you remember, that I'm coming for your job. To expedite that coming for your job, from an alliance, and it work out, you know what I mean? And they gain power, they sweep. And he was, I'm not sure if those promises might have been made before, but I was a little surprised, to be honest, when Watson put Farley to head Tobago. I thought he would have won that position as Chief Secretary of the THA. So that PNM move, when he was telling them they could go ahead and appoint Chief Secretary, and he could just hold finance, turned out to be not a bluff. That's what he wanted. And then now that we fast forward to today, I could understand why he wanted that, because his vision was not just Tobago, his vision was national. Even if it means shoot the PNM in the foot in a few, or what they call in safe seat, like downtown Port of Spain, South and Laventil West and all these places where PNM can't lose at all. Go down there and work the ground, which you're very good at. Better the other two parties, I would say, at working the ground and having a long range and long-term strategy that does not just dependent on social media and the fact that the brand recognition for PNM and UNC is way higher than any other party in this country. What's Gary party name again? National Transformation Alliance. Ask them. Many of them have more currency from a brand standpoint than anybody else. So, but Watson figured out how to work the ground and to stay on the ground for what seems to be years at a time in lead up to election. The man playing a very, very long game. And if he could make some changes in them seats, assuming that you already have the two Tobago seats locked, then you could swing the election. And as far as he concerned, remember that I asked him a few weeks ago, I think I played it on this podcast too, if he was to win some seats, would he join up with any party? And he said, no, party had to join up with me. So it seems as though one of his reasons why he would not take, as the political leader of a party, you tend to find that if the party get elected, the political leader almost automatically becomes the prime minister, right? I don't think we ever had a situation, no, we never had a situation in Trinidad and Tobago where the political leader of the party who win the election did not take the prime ministerial seat. And that is the equivalent of what Watson doing in Tobago. You win out the election, but you did not take chief secretary of the THA, which is the equivalent of prime minister, right? If you want to draw a parallel. And it had to be because he's seeing, hey, I could form a national party and in the long run, maybe not even in the next election, contest all the seats, if I in all 41. And the bank on Farley to lock down Tobago for him. But boy, it didn't look like it going too good. Because I felt as though when he made that video with them people in New York, he would have called Farley and talked to him before. These things not happening just like that. Watson, you could say a lot of things about Watson Duke, right? But it could be hard to call him erratic. Not since he promised to embed a glass in the flesh of another man, right? Some little boy Hinkson sent me that video. I don't know where the hell Hinkson find that video. But back in the day, Watson Duke let me know that, listen, I want to embed the flesh. Let me see if I could find the little clip for you here. Here it is.
I, Woltron Ellie Louisa,
Right.
has promised to ensure that you don't lead this organization into the next term, nor into the end of 2013. I said,
telling me they will kill me.
and you just threatened to impress our class?
Yeah.
So you threatening to kill me? Watson, you threatening to kill me, boy?
Watson?
There were strong words for and from PSA President.
Oh, wait to hear it,
Watson
right? Hear it, right?
I want to embed this glass in the flesh. You want to do what? Embed this in the flesh. So come over.
Yeah, come in front of him. Let me see you do it.
It was the revenge of the fallen as ousted.
You want to embed this glass in your flesh. Tell me what kind of gangster you need to be to come up with that. I want to also listen to Watson Tobago accent and that and hear how much it has changed over the years. The man accent get mainstream, you know what I mean? He has Tobago because the first part they a little hard to understand what he's saying to it. But since fast forward from them days where you could have called him erratic and call him even nonsensical, but he's very, very calculated now. So I don't think he would have jumped on a thing and started talking about Farley and this and that unless he see what is happening and he decide to make the first move. Because he would have been calling Farley and saying, Farley, here we are going on. These people and them, all send them here 200 and some thousand, they need the next 200, whatever. And Farley say, here we're going on. Talk to this one, that and do with me, that thing. The letter was sent, this is what they asked for. And Farley stop answer his phone or delegate him to a minion, as these people like to say. And probably threats were made, probably cuss pass. And Watson, being given the fact that he's not in an official capacity, understand that he only acting as the head of the PDP, right? He's not the head of the THA. He don't have it's not like I think he had an appointment within the THA that the Farley said is now under review. So this was Watson's response to it, and then a little clip come out, basically saying that, well, I guess in response to him saying that Watson's position is under review, a notice came out from the PDP via the Facebook page. The PDP political leader Watson Solomon Duke, at a PDP executive meeting held last night, Thursday, 8th of September 2022, has revoked with immediate effect the following deputy political leader appointments: Farley Augustine, deputy political leader; Faith Yisrael, deputy political leader; and Alicia Roberts Patterson, deputy political leader. The public is hereby to note that they are now ordinary members of the PDP and should be guided accordingly. So they're not ousted from the PDP, of course, because he cannot afford to remove them from the party. But you want to remove the deputy position so that they have no power within the party, because you might be soon removed from your THA position. So I'm going to go to the Express, right? This is from Camille Hunt, who I had to agree with. Camille Hunt, the headline is predictable fight between Duke and Farley. I had to agree with this. It's one of the better headlines I see. Because I don't know who didn't see this coming, although they're in my party. The fallout between political Democratic Patriots leader Watson Duke and Tobago House of Assembly Chief Secretary Farley Augustine was predictable given the personalities involved. This is the view of political analyst Dr. Indira Rampasad. Oh, I was giving you the credit, Camille. Give Indira Rampasad the credit. As she weighed in on the dispute that saw Duke revoke Augustine's appointment as PDP political leader on Friday. Duke revoked Augustine's appointment along with the appointments of THA Health Secretary Faith Israel and Alicia Roberts Patterson, the party's deputy political leaders, as I just said. The revocations came after Augustine announced at a news conference on Thursday that Duke's position as deputy chief secretary would be reviewed following a Facebook video in which Duke bashed the THA for not providing the needs for 27 hungry and forgotten members of the Roxborough folk performing group who had gone to New York to perform at various events related to Labor Day celebrations. Rampasad told the Sunday Express that Duke had a strong personality and would not have been happy with playing the second fiddle to Augustine in the THA. I don't understand. He put him... I have this wrong on. From my recollection of this, and if I'm wrong, I'll tell me. From my recollection of this, when they won, Duke and them would be the people who decided on who going to be appointed head of the THA. And he would have basically put himself as deputy secretary. Well, I could be wrong about that. Thought leader of the PDP, Duke serves as deputy chief secretary of the THA. It was predictable in some respect, Rampasad said. The personality and character of Watson Duke, he's a very strong, provocative individual and in some ways had to play second fiddle. So I don't think he would have taken quite nicely given his personality. Farley Augustine is the more moderate one, while Duke is the more radical one. So there are differences in personalities, and you would expect these kind of disagreements. However, leading to Farley being expelled as deputy political leader is a bit worrying so soon in the game. Rampasad said the dispute has shown cracks in the PDP, and there should be mediation to work out a solution, as two Borats can't live in one hole. That doesn't mean that good sense can't prevail and they can't work things out. But right now, it is very raw. Going forward, unless they find some kind of formula where they can reconcile their differences in the interest of Tobago, there are going to be problems. Why do the Expresses do this? My Express articles just jump around right while they're reading it. Where there are going to be problems with division in the party. Rampasad said she believes that both Duke and Augustine mean well and want the best for Tobago. She added that Augustine had been performing well as the chief secretary of the THA. So let us hope that there will be other members of the party and members of the THA who will be able to broker some kind of mediation to get them to work together. Mediation is the best way to resolve this dispute. Now, a few things I agree with here. I figure the personalities couldn't get along. I figure both of them was using one another. I don't think them and that like one another too much. But I do agree that when you listen to Farley or you've listened to Watson over the years, them two fellas genuinely want something for Tobago. Let me say want something great for Tobago. They might have different visions and different ways of going about it. And as with any other politician, men looking for self-gain too. Farley's a newly married man. And you know what I mean? Men want betterment for themselves. Nothing wrong with that. But they seem to genuinely love Tobago. I think one of the main areas they deviate might well be where Watson's push is for national, while Farley's focus is solely Tobago. All this is assumptions, right? I'm just telling you how I see it. I don't think Farley interested in Trinidad at all. I mean, Farley gangster, ex-Attorney General Faris Al-Rawi, immediately when he reached in power, saying, hey, you can't talk to me. I work for you. You take your time and slow down. You know what I mean? So I don't see him as looking for any national appeal. National appeal to him is equal to Tobago appeal, as far as I'm concerned now, from what I could see. While Watson looking for the bigger picture. So it will be interesting to see where it goes, because I hear a partner of mine was telling me that he feel PNM looking to snatch up Farley. Listen, I would be shocked. I don't think... boy, listen, PNM funny. Number one, Rowley funnier. But listen, I would be very, very surprised if Farley make that move to PNM. And I think if I write about him being so focused on Tobago that that's where he put in all his eggs in that basket, the biggest mistake he could possibly make after having separated Tobago from PNM colonialism, he go and join back with I don't see it happening. I think what was more predictable or what was more likely is him trying to walk the road on his own and see if he could get the appeal, the PDP type appeal. Because it's almost like this, right? To win that Tobago seat, you still need a real strong brand name and a good reputation, because Tobago does not want to be under PNM or UNC. But they also don't want to be left out in the cold by people who don't know what they're doing or don't know how to stand up for themselves. I think we in Trinidad, we might underestimate how real the talk about Tobago independence is over there. Independence from Trinidad. It's real talk that young people are very, very interested in and want to see. And sometimes we take it for granted in Trinidad. We also believe, for some strange reason, that if Tobago decide to separate themselves, that they will suffer and dog go eat their supper. I really don't think so, you know. It's just like we're here. I grew up with the notion that Trinidad is the most advanced country in the Caribbean and we have oil and gas and we're so much better than everywhere else. Listen, when you travel out through the Caribbean and you see how some of these cities clean and how easy it is to get government services in some of these cities, how smooth tourism works in some of these cities, we might be, dollar for dollar, we might be the most backward place to have in the Caribbean when you look at our GDP, GNI, any measure of how much money we have. We might be the most backward place to have in the whole Caribbean. So this notion that Tobago gonna suffer and then nothing ain't gonna happen for them, and if they remove themselves, is boy, listen, I don't think that to be true at all. And I believe that they may well have they could, like any other place, have a good chance to become what Watson was talking about, being first world, and they might advance much faster than here because they're single-minded. I feel like Tobagonians are more patriotic to their country. Tobagonians love Tobago more than Trinbagonians love Trinidad and Tobago. I put that right? That make any sense? The Tobagonians entrenched their heels down and they love their country. They're very entrepreneurial in the spirit, more so than the average area in Trinidad and so on. So this is again is an interesting fight to watch. Like Dr. Rampersad, I'm assuming that better sense will prevail, and all this sort of thing that going on now, because they both have a greater goal, that they still, I feel, better served as friends than as enemies. Because when Farley pull away from the PDP, there's a war that's going to start happening in Tobago with two men who good at running the ground and so on. But one of them have a much bigger name in Watson Duke and the PDP. And I don't think Farley will benefit from a fight with Watson. Keep in mind, we heading into 2003. The elections and them going to start to come fast and furious. And you had to be ready right now. I see Gary is readying up and making more statements. And I have to assume now that he completely turned his back on the idea of being police commissioner and put all his chips on the table for the political party, National Transformation Alliance. And I don't know how you feeling, but it feels a lot to me like 2008, 9, 10, where several parties are looking for that third force type spot. And that usually spells coalition in the end, right? That usually spells coalition. At some point, somebody makes some inroads, somebody take a little thing in St. Joseph, somebody win the two in Tobago, and then we come together and we make according to the great Mr. Shack, Mr. Shack saying the COP, UNC, NJAC, and TOP. It's the greatest acronym of all time in any calypso, right? So, one to keep an eye on it, because this has serious ramifications for what is going to happen in our next general election. But I think these two men better serve together, and somebody within the party going to come together and say, oh, let us talk, or let us work this thing out. It's no Trinidad without Tobago, no Tobago without Trinidad. And for PDP to have somebody as the chief secretary of the THA and the deputy chief secretary says something about Tobago's independence and where we're going and so on, and we had to take it down, and we had to have some rules of engagement. Because while Dr. Rampersad is saying, Watson is the radical one, but Farley is the more reserved. Just remember the statements he made when he went in power to Faris Al-Rawi, right? He was songing not radical all the way up to the time he was elected, but immediately in getting power, talking about within 48 hours of getting power in THA. The man basically just gangster the Attorney General for what I consider no good reason. I mean, I would think, this is just how I operate. I like honey more than I like whip and stick and them kind of things. So, boy, you put me in a position of power, I looking to see how I could be friendly with everybody. Towards the end, but be friendly with everybody involved. So, one to keep an eye on. So, I really come here this week to talk about the queens. In this time of mourning, I just want to acknowledge our queens in this episode. I want to play this one by one of the greatest queens of all time, one of the greatest queens we have in history. And I'm talking about real monarchy, with king make queen and all these things, all these settings that we're studying over in Balmoral and Buckingham Palace. We are right here. We have a king who responsible for 2 queens, and the 2 queens that fall out. We could make our own crown show down here, and the one queen become thing, and she married a king now, and then make a young queen named Siri. Listen, we have our own monarchy down here, and we studying these people, and then I just want to leave this song from our queen to the great Watson Duke and Farley Augustine. So let them know that only much better together than separate. I don't know if all you recognize this. And sometimes modern day things is make things harder, Sometimes 2 men just have to sit down and talk it out. Sometimes men have to cough it out too, in privacy, right? Don't let nobody see that. But put on some boxing gloves, cough it out and make the thing. But you see this thing where I send a thing for you, and I make a Twitter thing, and I make a video on Facebook, and I think them is the kind of problems that make people fall apart. So let me hear what one of our greatest queens of all time had to say about that.
How will you wine and feel it? How will you wine and feel it? How will you wine and feel it?
Yes?
How will you wine and feel it?
Hear the advice,
I remember long ago, how the party used to go. When anytime you come my line, was to hold someone and wine. Now everybody on the phone, man they can't leave it at home. Through the party shining bright, camera and video light.
Yeah.
It's only social media, no social behavior.
I want to wine.
You wine my girl now. How will you wine? Stop to wine my girl.
Come off of the social media and talk to one another.
Oh. You wine on your phone. Put on your phone. Just wine. Hey,
wine too. Take a wine.
Take me back to the party.
Yes.
Take me back long time.
Take me back PDP.
Soca woman and wine.
God.
Take me back to the party. Take me back long time. Take me back with the hands in the air. Hold someone and wine. On the road. How will you wine and feel good? How will you wine and feel? Bend your back and wine, girl. Hold your head and wine, girl. Roll that bouncy and wine, girl. How will you wine, girl? Roll the thing and wine, girl. Hold somebody and wine, girl. Party dress code in the day was the easiest way. And when the crew was on the way, well man, the party start from there. And when you reach the party door, energy forevermore. Well, I go start the bacchanal. No VIP, just general. No, it's just social media, no social behavior. How will you wine? Nobody whining. Nobody whine. Nobody whining. It's only social media, no social behavior.
I want to wine. Farley holding my wine. Hey, I just have a few more things to talk about before. Hey, last week I said I was going to put the cultural things up front, and I forget to do it again. But let me get you to take it and talk about the culture happening, right? Important article here by Dunstan Bond. Change culture to reduce food import bill. Co-founder of the newly launched Caribbean Supermarket Association, Vernon Persad, says the key to reducing the high food import bill locally and regionally is a change in culture as it relates to consumption patterns of people. Persad, who is a director of Persad the Food King Group, noted that the big question is how countries are going to reduce the food import bill and what items are that need to be targeted for that to happen. What are the items that need to be targeted for that to happen? Speaking at the launch at Crave Restaurant on Marabella, he said that to achieve the reduction in the food import bill, there needs to be a change in the culture and consumption patterns of the citizenry. We sell what the public demands. However, if their taste patterns change from salmon to tilapia or some other local fish, we will move the volume of salmon off our shelves and replace it with the customers' demand and what they prefer. This is not only a Caribbean Supermarket Association initiative. This has to be a Caribbean people initiative for this to work. We are doing our part, and we expect everybody else to add support. So we are changing the rhetoric. Let all of us be a part of this change. He said, I think when you look at the basics, especially when you want to shift the culture of consumption, because there's a culture, because there is a culture and it's a Caribbean problem. I've heard this in the islands and from other chambers that the culture of imported goods beats the profile of local goods. And maybe you have to work on that culture and that takes into consideration nutrition, marketing, and making the products more appealing to customers. I thought I should talk about this for a few minutes, right? Real quick. Because I tell you about the food bill thing. I can't remember I talked about it last week, but I reach a point now where I say, don't tell me what nothing costs. Because I was telling her about the fridge spoil, and she told me, she said, boy, listen, carry that chicken and that salmon by the neighbor, because $100 and something I pay for that chicken, and $200 and something for that salmon. When I hear that, I sort of worry. I'll get next work again. Anybody interested in sponsoring our podcast? Like, all you want to advertise on the podcast? If you want to advertise, let me know. So you could give me a little salmon money or chicken money, not much, a little thing to help you push your product and thing, and I could get groceries or a fridge that working. You know what I mean? But the food prices is an issue. It's going to continue to be an issue. And rising prices tend to be sticky. I could say that. So when prices go up, they tend to not go back down as fast as they went up, if they go back down at all. And salary rises don't tend to follow. It's hard for salaries to keep up with inflation. The production and productivity really is the way out. So you're making more of something so that you can slow down inflation, or you're making more money, you're more productive. So there's the ability for you to earn more by producing more, not necessarily earn more just because you're wrong. And because things getting more expensive, I as an employer must figure out a way to pay you more money if I in fact not making enough money. What is more likely to happen is I might pay more, but I might have to downsize, because I have to keep my salary bill at a level where the company is still profitable. Is business 101. But as I said last week, the government, what I read was that the government have a obligation to its public service to pay them a decent living wage. I can't remember the exact words, but even if the government continues to do that, what you will tend to find is that there will be more pressure on the government to innovate away from having the biggest labor force in the country. You know my theory, right? They should privatize as much things as they could privatize and reduce that wage bill of the government anyway. But you might get people paid a better living wage, but you might get less people being paid because they reduce the amount of government services that they provide, or they find ways to innovate and find. I went through a whole process to renew a passport recently, and the mother and father had to be there because the child, I guess, some of them wicked mothers is just ride out to the child. I guess that's what is to prevent that, and all is cultural, according to what this man saying in this article. But there's so much of that process that you don't need disgruntled people there to be saying no all day. All of my experience in the office in Chaguanas was good. Salute to them. But you don't need people saying no in a set of offices there, going through up. You had to sit down on a seat. And then when the people move forward, you had to get up, move forward, sit down in the next seat. And you're literally changing seats to different areas for somebody to check a form. Even the security in there, salute to them, because they're trying to help make the workflow smoother. They come in and check your forms and make sure you follow out everything right. I mean, come on. If you do all that same thing online and not have to print out that form and carry it and stuff, you could literally check that to see if it's correct online. And if you hit submit, like me, like me, so don't like to read and like to skim, I hit submit, it go back and it show me some red areas. It say, hey, you didn't put the child address, you didn't put the child photo, you didn't put these things so simple. You could get a passport photo app on your phone. Even if you probably don't even need that now, you could just, all this could be done online, is what I'm saying. And we probably have a heavily bloated public service. So while we might be arguing that 4% is not enough and we should really pay something closer to 20, that might be true, to get us back to 2020, to get a salary that matches 2022 price levels. What's going to eventually happen is that the government is going to have shed some of the people, downsize and retrench, whoever take that very unpopular decision will probably lose the next election. All the reason, more reason for Fali and them to talk to one another. All this is why, when you see things like this, think of it like this, right? When you see these things in the making, like big institutions like Petrotrin have to close down, WASA had to change and privatize, TNTech had privatized, big parts had already gone private in terms of provisioning and so on, or the government having to downsize. It is known that the party in power, whoever take that decision, will probably lose the next election because it stings as a society in the short run, right? And we're very short run in nature anyway. And when that happens, so that's why you see a lot of coalition parties and them things. Watch it throughout the region. Watch it in Guyana. With what they had to go through with Gaisuko. Once you see these big things on the horizon, man start to get political hope. Because they know once they organize themselves and they come out, you have a good chance to unseat the incumbent because nobody gonna accept this when it happens. But they signed that deal now to increase the salaries. Without anything new happening. There's no new innovation, there's no new production, there's no new revenue stream for the government. There's nothing that says we're going to have more money to do these things or sustain when we do these things or continue to grow. I don't see any indication of that. But I kind of like this initiative that they're calling for because that is in economics, they call it supply side, right? But I like that having founded this Caribbean Supermarkets Association, Vernon Prasad was able to come out and talk a little bit about the demand side. Because one of the things that we could also do, and I'm sure that this is already happening, right? I used to tell people in marketing class all the time, right, that consumers, economics have this thing called homo economicus, no homo. But I mean a rational consumer, right? That the consumer will typically take on the most rational decision. But I want you to appreciate that economics as a subject is as theoretical as it gets, right? Very, very, I shouldn't say that. There's a lot of economics that can be applied and is applied and very relevant to what we do on a day-to-day basis. But for economic frameworks and theories, a lot of assumptions have to be put in place to ensure that we're looking at a specific situation. When you take away all the assumptions and put it in the real world, the theory holds up, but it's just affected by so much other things. One of those assumptions is what you call homo economicus. And in economics, is always finished by saying ceteris paribus. When I say that, all things remaining equal, right? Because in regular science, you could have an experiment that you do. So you put a little this chemical and that chemical in this, and you put two ounces in here, 3 ounces in this one, and then you have a control and no chemical at all, and they will react the same way every time. But unfortunately, in social sciences, too much is happening for you to be able to isolate anything the way they isolate it in regular science. So what they do is they put a lot of assumptions in place. They say, all right, well, assuming the price level will remain the same, assuming that the consumer is rational and will always take the decision that makes him better off, increases his welfare, right? Maximizes your welfare. Assuming that the firm will maximize their profit, and then I will say ceteris paribus, all things being equal. In other words, anything else I didn't think of, nothing in changing. And if this was to happen, we know this will happen. And then you take that and apply it to the real world now, where, of course, the assumptions don't hold up, right? But that term, homo economicus, does not apply very well in marketing or in business terms, because we know that consumers do not always take rational decisions. Consumers do not have all the information. They don't care to have all the information. Consumers practice something called satisficing. So while economists go tell you that they're maximizing satisfaction, the reality is that it's satisficing. They're just making the best of whatever the situation in front of them right now. You have some economic models where they say the assumption is that there's perfect knowledge. There's no such thing as perfect knowledge in the real world. So from marketing terms, we understand that the consumer is making the best of the situation they're in right now. So the idea that idea that they're rational, they think through everything. I mean, you think about how much things you buy on impulse and how many products. I want to lose some weight, but I have a bunch of Oreos and Chips Ahoy. Them things could never be rational. So that's how we operate. So I was glad that Vernon Prasad was able to identify this, because what I usually tell students in marketing classes is that when prices start getting high, consumers make adjustments almost subconsciously without knowing. And the way it works for me as somebody in the field is I would say, boy, Tide is too expensive, and I'm going to start to buy Breeze to wash my clothes now because I cannot afford the Tide, right? That's what rational consumers think. But what tends to happen is people generally don't like downgrading, whether voluntary or not, their standard of living. So what tends to happen is people make statements like, oh, good, look how Breeze advanced. The Breeze washing clothes just as good as the Tide. They have no way of comparing these two things. And this is completely emotional decision making. But consumers will rationalize it and articulate it as what they had called the inferior product before. They will say, the Breeze washing, look how the Breeze washing clothes. Or, you only used to drive Benz. They say, but look how Kia get nice. Them Kia and them is the same set of features them Kia and them have as Benz. You know what I mean? That is how you hear consumers think. So I like that he brought this up to say that there's a possibility that we could do a job on the demand side of the fence to start getting people to change their preferences, adjust their cultural tastes towards local products. So before we had to go back to a negative list, which in today's world of international trade, I don't know that you could do that. If you come out and say we don't have enough power to come and say these things can't be important in the country again, because we might not be able to deal with the backlash that comes from that, right? But one of the things we could certainly do is take on a marketing campaign that tells people, listen, mango and them good, and them thing growing here, banana and them thing good. Stop buying us at a grape. Hint, in my household, people, if anybody listening, stop saying us at a grape and them $100 cherry. It's a cherry here, cheap. You know what I mean? So buying these expensive fruits and start adjusting your taste and preferences to the local fruits and vegetables and so on. And that has a kind of two-pronged effect. What will say that happen is, all right, so we now losing less foreign currency because the import bill could drop. And we also getting a chance to increase productivity because once, as Prasad rightly said, you know what I mean? He say, if only you tilapia, we go stop sell salmon. Retailers respond to demand better than plenty other businesses, especially supermarkets. These men shrewd. So they will switch. So if mango and one to five finger and sapodilla and pumpsite and all these things that we grew up eating all the time, or even when you look at how much you would spend on Doritos and Fritos and Chex Mix, hint, in my house, if anybody listening, you know what I mean? We could buy Olay and well, you know what side of the fence I on? I can't remember no local snacks. Zumas, Conkles, cheese balls. You could buy the local versions of all these snacks. Instead of buying Cadbury and all, you could buy Marshall Montano, you know what I mean? Get some Montano chocolates up in here. Now, granted, I understand, I hear what you're saying. There's some of the local things like Montanos might be more expensive than the foreign thing, but if we could adjust the taste and preferences, it will start to help us correct that foreign exchange situation and that high import bill that we changing every time. So salute to the people at Pasadzi Food King for something different. I would love to see how that goes from a newspaper article into public effect, and maybe it's something that we could start doing on our own. I'm sure we've already started to do it. I've seen some very, very minor adjustments in my household away from the foreign snacks towards the little local people and thing, because the food bill is crazy. All right, on the cultural side, I will wrap up this episode by talking about an announcement I saw this week, I was a little surprised at, to be honest. This is from Loop TT by Laura Dowich Phillips, somebody else who is always on the culture. Grammy Award winning African giant of Afrobeats is expected to be announced as the headliner for Trinidad for Tobago Music Festival. The entertainer, along with a cast of local, regional, and international acts, will be announced when Tomac officially launches its festival. The festival will begin at Tomac Cottage at the official secretariat in Plymouth and will culminate one block down at the Plymouth Sports Ground, the site of the festival, in October. So the announcement that they eventually made was that the Great Burna Boy is going to be here for Tobago Carnival. No, I have mixed feelings about this, to be honest. Burna Boy is super. I mean, Burna Boy is probably the world's biggest superstar right now, right? According to Jay-Z, he's in a white hot space. Anything he touched turned into gold. Anything he do selling out. He's is following increasing in social media, and otherwise Burna Boy is the man, right? And I'm not against him coming to Tobago, of course. And like I say, I'm trying to figure out how to get to Skeng and Movado. But for me to go skeng on Movado, I need somebody had to call me and tell me exactly when Movado going on stage. I need a park in the handicap park, like right by the door. Or I could drive up and stay in my car and watch it. I would really like to see them two perform. And I would really like to see Burna Boy too. But I just find it such a weird decision. Because Tobago Carnival seems to have already gotten the appeal that they were looking for. Maybe I underestimated what they want their audience to be, because it's all the tickets are sold out. When I say ticket, plane ticket, boat ticket, and things for that Tobago Carnival weekend, you can't get a flight or you can't get a boat. And that seems that if you want to use that as some measure of success, I would say it's a good measure of how successful the festival is. You know what I mean? All the play that will usually happen Easter weekend and a little long weekend that we have. So if that was what you were looking for, then you win. I'm not sure if sold out flights and boats means sold out rooms in the country. I would assume that it means that, because if everybody going over there from Trinidad, it had to be harder to get a place, right? Places should be somewhere close to capacity. So if you're already at this point before any announcement of any major artist or the biggest artist in the world, then when you announce the biggest artist in the world, what's the plan? Is there some increased capacity? Because the demand has certainly gone up. I see plenty of people on Instagram talking about going to see Burna Boy in Tobago and not being able to find a flight or a boat. So it's kind of odd. Are they going to put on more flights and put on more boats? And is there more room? Like, they have enough room? Is the capacity there? Or is it that you're just going to sell these tickets to people who are already there? Because I just find it strange, you know what I mean? Why not do this out? Like, Burna Boy could cause this same effect of selling out all the boats and all the flights on any given weekend, even a weekday. Anytime he comes to Trinidad, he's going to sell out a lot, because there are people who will travel, like Mia Motley from Barbados, to come here to see Burna Boy. People from Guyana. This guy is white hot. It's ridiculous how big an artist he is. You know what I mean? I going to school. The other day I drive in Zachary to school. I listen to my little radio station. And I mean paying attention to what is playing on the radio. Next thing I hear in the back, I got the bounce and the picayo and the potatoes and the pizzayo and the a big boy and shayo. And he telling me, well, big boy is weed and shayo is ganja. Me know none of these things, you know what I mean? But when you see little children into you that much, this man is the biggest artist in the world right now. Why not do this on a time outside of Tobago Carnival so you could increase your revenue maximizing weekends? Don't do it on a long weekend. Don't do it on no Easter weekend. Don't do it when you already have a peak type season. Do it to create a peak type season. Like what they used to do with Jazz Festival. To me, Jazz Festival was a great idea because it was selling out Tobago, which will have a ripple effect on all the businesses in Tobago, because then taxi had to drive, place had to rent out, penny savers had to sell liquor and food and things for people to eat. Tobago House have pancakes and these people, you understand? So it's just an odd one. And I'm hoping that it means some increase in capacity over what happened over there to justify this. I just find it very, very strange. Additional to that, not that I am against this generally, but Tobago Carnival, I think, is a great opportunity. Kind of coming off the heels of Miami Carnival is a great opportunity for international tourism, not just domestic tourism. So you have another carnival in there where you could do your own version of it, so that we have something different from Trinidad. I hope it's different from Trinidad Carnival. So it could look a little more like a Grenada, where it's a Jab Fest. That might be too natural, but actually it's quite natural for Tobago when you think of Abyssinia and, you know what I mean, the history of Jab and Devil and them kind of thing over there. Or you can make it in that Labor Day Parkway type, whatever vibe you want to create. You could create it as in October, creating a great revenue situation for the country, as well as all the businesses in Tobago and micro entrepreneurs. And it's just so this could be an annual festival. So like, why put Afrobeats in the mix there when you want to create something that you could do annually on your own? I mean, I don't know. It's a real strange decision. And also, like, why not lead with this? Why if this was in the works, when you announce that we have a Tobago Carnival, why do open the gate with this and say, well, all right, here what's going on? We have a Tobago Carnival and we bring in Burna Boy. And that is what he's doing Tobago Carnival. He's bringing the biggest artists in the world at the time. So if next year the biggest artist in the world is, let me say, Beyonce, that's who we bring in. And that becomes a part of how we sell the carnival. But then you make sure that you have real rooms and real flights, and the island is just awash with people, and you bring in real US and things. But anyway, that is where I'm going to leave you this week. I'm going to leave you with one of my other favorite queens of Calypso, since we're talking about queen and so on. I kind of want to talk about my queens. And let me play my favorite by this queen. Because this queen was missing from their Madison Square Garden. I say in Madison Square Garden. What the place name? Barclays. And I had to told my sister, right? You gotta understand the kind of Marshall fan she is, right? Marshall can't do no wrong in this girl eyes. So I tell her now. I don't know what I say on the podcast last week about Marshall and Barclays and things, and more artists need to do that. She's like, Marshall is the only person who could sell out Barclays. I said, but I'm saying, Kes Barclays is only 19,000 people. Kes getting 19,000 people now, and Kes Tuesday in the middle of the weekend. I'm pretty sure Kes can sell out Barclays. I'm pretty sure if Bungie and Fayon put on a show like that, they could sell out Barclays too. I feel like, what could sell? But this girl is damn sure that Marshall is the only person who could sell out Barclays. But anyway, we digress. I want to leave you with my favorite song by what would be, maybe outside of Calypso Rose, because we just love Rose, but what would be my favorite queen?
Hey! Hey! Bacchanal! On the road is Bacchanal, through the streets is Bacchanal, on the stage is Bacchanal, make a Bacchanal, Carnival is Bacchanal, behind the truck is Bacchanal.
This is the greatest song Destra ever singing it, underrated.
Time to hit the road, I could hardly wait, I want to explode. One thing on my mind is to find a posse and
Hey, and I want it to be known that I'm officially a human, what is it called, humanite? I'm inside.
Cause when the music hits the brain, I feel like going crazy. And I can jump for miles and miles and feel no pain. It's in my blood, it's in my veins. Can't wash it off, I'm forever stained. I hear the people calling my name. When we jumping up, look at that. When we winding up, look at that. When we getting up, look at that. Bacchanal, 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 Bacchanal. I'm in Bacchanal, they call me Bacchanal. I'm in Bacchanal, they call me Bacchanal. I'm in Bacchanal, they call me Bacchanal. I'm in Bacchanal. Make a Bacchanal in the road, make a Bacchanal in the street, make a Bacchanal on the stage, make a Bacchanal. Misbehave, misbehave, misbehave. Jump up now, jump up now. Wave up now, wave up now. Wind down, yes, wind down, yes. Get on now, turn it on now. All inside my brain, the rhythm make go insane. Don't throw me in jail, I will find somebody to stand there. Move on, let me pass, let me blow my whistle and play a mass. I'll be plenty room to shake up my ass. 'Cause when the music hits the brain, I feel like going crazy. And I can jump for miles and miles and feel no pain. It's in my blood, it's in my veins. Can't wash it off, I'm forever stained. I hear the people calling my name. When we jumping up, look at that. When we winding up, look at that. When we getting up, look at that. Bacchanal.
Listen, this is the greatest Destra song it ever had, and it might be one of the greatest soca it ever had. But for all who mourning the queen, I just want to leave all you by identifying some queens who all you could mourn, right? I can't play everybody in the episode, right? I'm trying to limit the time. But I would like to acknowledge queens like Alison Hines, Patrice Roberts, Destra and Fayan. We acknowledge in this episode Nadia Batson, Nyla Blackman. I said Patrice already. Tamika Marshall, Denise Belfort, Calypso Rose, Little Bits, Isha Turner singing Sandra. If all you want to Drupati Ramgunai, Charlene Flores, who again, Daisy Voze. Just a couple queens that if all you feeling like all you want to acknowledge queens. And if you ain't like soca and you ain't like parang and thing, we have queens like Marcia Griffiths, Rita Marley, Tana, Judy Maud, Lady Saw, Tanya Stevens, Coffee, Queen Ifrica, Lady G, Dawn Penn. Who again all you want? What a bam bam, Sister Nancy. Thousands of queens we have in the Caribbean here who we admire, adore, and love. And this episode is dedicated to the queens.